has someone done to you to make you never trust them again? Story 1. After our wedding reception, my new husband and I left the money we got as gifts with his mother while we went to enjoy our honeymoon. A week later we came back and gave her a call saying we were on our way to pick it up. We needed it to do some stuff on our house. Well, she confessed that she spent it all while we were gone. She never asked permission and lied about needing it for bills. In the past we had loaned her a couple $100s here and there that she never paid us back, but we never thought she would steal money from us. Looking back, we were stupid to trust her with it. We told her we're never giving her money again and she had a week to pay us back. She did get the money back to us, but when she handed it over she hugged my husband and thanked him for helping her and letting her use it. You'll never forget the look on his face when she did that. Now 4 years later we avoid ever seeing her because every time she asks to borrow money, and every time we say no. Most recently, she showed off a shitty piece of art she bought from a neighbor for $150 the week before, and the next day she asked us to borrow $200. When we suggested she sell the art, she said she'd just call her siblings for the money. You'll never trust her again. Edit. Wow, so this is what people mean by RIP my inbox. I passed out after posting this and can't believe the attention it's gotten, and am saddened by how many people have similar stories. And yes, I will absolutely be checking out RNOMIL. Thank you to everyone who pointed me in that direction. Story 2. Back in high school, my best friend was having a birthday party, told me that her dad said she was only allowed to have 5 people, and wanted to invite people she didn't get to see very often. I was disappointed, but accepted it. Day after her birthday, one of our mutual friends is telling us how 10 people were there, including her ex-boyfriend, confronted her, she denied ever saying it, called me a liar, a bad friend, etc., and hung up on me because I started crying. Story 3. There were a lot of things with one ex I had. He lied about having a job. Even after he moved in with me, he would just leave the house and go somewhere for a few hours to say he was at work. I was in college full-time and working part-time, so I wasn't home enough to catch him at this, though one of our roommates eventually did. He apparently was able to pay for his part of the rent for a while by borrowing money from a whole lot of people on a rotating basis. But eventually that dried up. He invented people as well, especially people he worked with, and he always had new and more outlandish reasons for why you couldn't meet them. It was surreal. The craziest part was that after I kicked him out, he started telling his mom he had stomach cancer. I emailed her and told her it was definitely false, but she wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. When she flew down for his surgery to help take care of him, he said he had the date wrong. He did that to her twice, then I think she cut contact. Story 4. My ex-boyfriend sent nudies of me around my high school, and everyone called me a from then on even though I had only ever slept with him. It was tough. Don't send nudies, kids. Story 5. Beginning when I was 9, I kept a diary where I would intermittently write random stuff. I was aware even as a kid that my mother would snoop every now and then in it, but it didn't bother me because she's my mom and I trusted her. One day in 6th grade, after introducing her to a boy from my class, she goes and blurts out, "Oh, so you're Turtle Tyler's crush." I was a fat, bespectacled, insecure 12-year-old, and couldn't possibly need anything else to bring my confidence down. I'd already graduated from uni and had gotten married before I confided any serious news secret to her again. Story 6. Hey, can I borrow $250? I promise to pay you next week on payday. Sure man, no problem. Next day quits job. Edit. Don't loan a buddy anything you can't afford to lose. Also, it's borrow not borrow. Thanks D. Story 7. Well, my mother, sister and I went to live with my mother's brother after my father died. For financial help, I guess. When I was 9, my mom got leukemia, and the first time she ended up staying in a hospital overnight. My uncle laid naked on his bed and asked me to come in and sit next to him. By some luck, I didn't just do it, I ran and told. But that obviously cemented that I couldn't trust him. Then, his mom, my grandma, came to live with us to help, since my mom was sick, but the whole thing was ignored and we still lived there with my uncle, with my grandma treating him like her favored child the whole time. Nothing wrong. So that also confirmed I couldn't trust her to put me first. Edit. To add, thanks for all the upvotes and words of support and encouragement. It's nice to have such a platform and community to get things off our chest like this, since it's something I've not been able to address much IRL. It's almost worth going through to reap the Reddit karma today. Kidding. Bad dark humor. Thanks again. Story 8. Tell a story to someone in front of me of something that happened that I witnessed, in a way that was completely different than what actually happened. I tried to make that sentence as sensible as possible. Hopefully it's not too bad. It immediately makes me doubt every single thing that person says to me from that moment on. Bonus points if I don't even recognize the situation they're talking about as something that I witnessed because they skewed it so much. Story 9 told me she was committing suicide. I talked her through it, cried with her, got a nearby friend to call the police to go help her, etc. Maybe after 15 minutes of this she seems to be better and says, "I'm glad I can trust you to be there if I ever actually think of committing suicide. It was a test." She was very confused as to why I refused to talk to her ever again. Edit. Yes, she told me it was a test. She had no plans to commit suicide that night. Story 10. After years of trying to pull myself back together after my sister's suicide, I started seeing this guy and was really freaking because I have serious commitment issues. My then best friend wouldn't hear of meeting the guy. He wasn't allowed to our group gatherings. She said stuff like, "I don't want to share you." I had finally had enough and asked her if she could just support me with this dating thing because her negativity was too much. She told me, "You're too up from your sister's death to have a relationship with anyone." I told her never to speak to me again and I haven't. Story 11. After my dad died, I asked to speak at the funeral. Only request I've ever made of my mom. ID spent years taking care of him and was there when he passed. She said no. Instead this guy spoke who barely knew him. Dude actually said that in his speech too. It was quite possibly the meanest thing my mom ever did to me. Although there are plenty more examples, the minister as well as many friends were horrified my mom pulled this. She's a very sick and controlling person and relished in infantilizing me. You'll never trust her again. Edit to clarify. It's not as easy to just go up to the pew on a stage and take a mic at a church I don't attend. I don't attend any church. And I'm sitting between each of my children. I gotta be the adult, and as much as I wanted to speak, I knew that my dad would not want his funeral to become a showdown between my mom and I. Sometimes you have to bite your tongue. That was one of those moments, but I had friends there, and afterwards we went to a pub and had a toast. That helped. Edit 2. My dad and I when I was in high school early 90s. Miss you dad. Edit 3G. So many kind comments. I read them all and thank you seriously. I'm not crying, you're crying. Story 12. This is the light, quick version. Best friend was routinely living at my house, hanging out, etc. I defended this kid, we were teenagers at the time, with words and fists more than once. He always had these outlandish stories that, I'll admit, were slightly unbelievable, but I accepted them due to the way they were told. Gradually these stories got worse. Either way, he started stealing from everybody, including myself, and generally tried his damnedest to overawe his friends. His last name became synonymous with being ripped off. I told him to kick rocks when I was about 19. 10 years later, I run into him at a festival. I was working on a pot farm and mentioned it. I find out a while later from the farmer that he showed up there one night, uninvited, and started name-dropping me and basically making everybody real uneasy. I called him out and he pretty much just accused me of all the awful he did when we were younger. I didn't threaten him, but he might get punched next time I see him. Lord knows he deserves it. This guy over so many of his friends and lied and lied and lied. There's so many little instances of him being a complete, but I'm not gonna get too into it on a mobile keyboard. Edit holy, I've never commented and had it spark such a response. He'll try to answer questions, but I seriously don't have a computer besides this phone. Drop contact for no reason whatsoever and act as if nothing happened. Story 13. Roommate who stopped paying bills while his name was on the lease was using my rent money for whatever and not paying rent. Then all of our utilities got off because he didn't pay that either, even though he told me he was constantly. Then after the utilities went out, I went to work and came home and half of his was gone and I didn't hear from him again. Edit, I didn't realize how often this happened to people, but it really sucks, especially when you think that person is your friend. I also found out to an eviction notice on the door. And I couldn't stay there because it was January and there was no heat or water or power, so I stayed with my girlfriend at the time, and then I went back a few days later to get all of my, and I literally could not even step foot in the kitchen because it was so rancid and they didn't clean anything. I forgot to mention it wasn't just one guy, but brothers, and I've only messaged him once basically just to say you, and he just acted like he did nothing wrong and didn't know what I was talking about. What an. Story 14. I used to manage a movie theater. I came across an application from this kid who was friends with my ex. It said he left his position at another theater because his mom died. I was really sad because we used to hang out at his house and I met his mom several times. Fast forward a couple years, this kid starts coming in every now and then asking for free tickets for him and his friends. I didn't care. Free tickets was one of the few perks of the job and helped our weekly numbers in concession sales, so I'd give him all the tickets he wanted. Then it was his birthday. Can I get tickets? Yeah, sure, no problem, happy birthday. A few months later it was his birthday again. I didn't realize he had 2 birthdays this year until after I gave him the tickets and sent him on his way, so I just cut my loss and moved on. A couple months later he comes in again and asks for free tickets and says his mom just died. I told him to hold on and I get the application. I ask him what is this. He said his mom died a couple years before that. He said he didn't submit that application and that wasn't even his address. I said, dude, I've been to your house, don't ask me for tickets ever again. And I left, never saw him again. TLDR, a friend of a friend lied about his mom dying to get free movie tickets. Story 15. When I started working in juvenile corrections, I had a coworker I started with. She seemed professional and sweet. We all went to pre-service together, and it made us all pretty tight-knit. She was very personable and helped a lot of the female staff adjust to our new careers. When we began duty, she was assigned a unit full of horrible inmates that were really disrespectful, and their unit manager didn't do anything about it. Operations didn't want to do her job for her, so it turned into the officers being on their own with getting those guys in line. I was in the relief pool, so when her unit was available, I decided to go help her out. Even if the inmates are rough, I figured we'd be a team and get through it. So hey, race the thing, in the minority in that building. The inmates aren't white. The staff aren't white, so it could get awkward sometimes. I'm goofy and it gets a lot of laughs, but it was literally a tough crowd, so this kid starts tearing into me disrespectfully, saying I'm ugly, I'm weird, and I'm poorly dressed, whatever. I knew this was coming. Then my partner, she chimes in with him and goes, I know. He was so weird during our training. I expected it from the inmates, but my partner joined in with them to be disrespectful and insulting. I acted like I didn't care, but it hurt me a lot that I trusted her and she would just burn me like that to be cool to some teen. I avoided her after that. Siding with inmates when your staff is the shittiest thing you can do. She started a lot of staff and buddying up with the superiors, and it became awesomely common that she'd kill time sitting in operations and leaving her partners alone on the unit. She always talks about her church and being a Christian, right? Whatever. No wonder nobody in our facility wants to see what the Bible has to offer with people like her holding it out to them. Story 16. My mom, really, with my undying trust I had in her as a child, she would tell us we were going to Disney World, all up to the point of having us pack, just for Dad to come home and say we barely have money for food, we're not ever going to Disney. But the mega big papa trust was when I got in a car accident at about 12 to 13 years old. I wasn't hurt terribly bad, but my mom made a huge claim to get a bunch of money. I had to go to physical therapy and fake injuries, and she took the $2,500 and went on a vacation without me. Story 17. Mom bought a diary for me to write down my dreams and thoughts, and then proceeded to read it and made fun of me. I was 7 years old. Parents also swept the fact that I was abused by my year 7 math teacher under the rug. They never confronted the guy, never mentioned it, generally pretend it didn't happen. Edit more context, I guess. We live in a third world country that just recovered from 2 devastating wars and another civil war. Police work is a joke. Pedophilia is still a foreign concept with most people. I do get that Mom was doing the best she could since she had no idea how to deal with the situation. Her childhood and teenage years were spent working for food and general survival. Things like mental well-being, child molestation, teachers are not all morally upstanding are Western fancy ideas to her, so shutting down and sending me away was her way of dealing with it. Yeah, she sent me away to go to school in another city, living with an Aunt ID never spoken more than one sentence to before, and then a few years abroad on my own, during which I was severely depressed yet not even had a clue what depression is. I was fine with her action until I talked to someone and they pointed out how not fine it was at all. Then suddenly it feels like I can feel all the feelings I suppressed before, and I can't help but feel so disappointed and resentful. If your idea of extraordinarily successful parenting is feeding them and properly dressing them, then please get a dog. Story 18. I've done heroin a few times, but never again. I want to believe them, I want to trust them, but after losing a friend in a couple short years to the painkiller to heroin thing, I have very little faith. Story 19. Friend of 8 years got a job at the same place as me and things were good for a while, but every time I would say anything to him I would end up hearing from the boss the same complaints that I was talking to my friend about. And then after that he started spreading rumors with the rest of our friends and the other workers that I was damaging store property and harassing employees. It ended up being cleared as nothing had been done by myself and the rest of our group of friends stopped talking to him. At the time I was the only one that made an effort to be his friend still. Everyone else had gotten fed up with his. I always had to cool everyone down, but after that I just ignore his existence. Still work together from time to time. Story 20. I got up super early to help a friend with horse stuff, and the entire time she was asking me to lie to anyone that asked questions about the horse. Every phone call she made was lying to someone about what she was doing or where she was. That, and I took care of her horses for months and still haven't been paid for those services. I'm a pet sitter, it's my income and she knew it. It's why she asked me to care for them in the first place. Knowing she wasn't financially well off, I only asked for the cost of transportation to and from her horses, well over $200 discount, meaning zero for my actual services. It's been over a year and she's reluctantly paid me a fraction of it so far. Every time I send a reminder it's ignored or there's yet another excuse or life crisis that causes her to not pay. If you can't afford your animals, don't have animals. Story 21. Consistently criticize the girlfriends of our mutual friends. If he's criticizing them behind their backs, then what's he saying about my girlfriend behind my back? Story 22. Listened to all of their problems and gave them advice, snapped at me and called me pathetic after expressing that I was upset with them after they broke my trust. Cut that friendship off pretty soon after. Story 23. Gave him money to buy a birthday gift for a mutual friend. He ended up using it on his girlfriend for a trip to the water park and a bouquet of flowers. Sweet of him, but he got no more loans from me. Story 24. Bounced a rent check. I was sharing an apartment with my best friend. The apartment and utilities were in my name, so he paid his half of the bills and rent to me. I usually had to nag him for the rent money, and one month he was particularly late. I told him I needed the money ASAP to pay rent, so he gave me a check. I deposited it, paid the rent check, and all seemed well. A short while later, I find out his check bounced, which then made the rent check bounce. When I confronted him, he said, "Why do you deposit that check?" It was no good. I was dumbfounded, and asked him why he'd give me a check for rent he knew I needed to pay if it was no good. He said, "You kept bugging me about it. No way I'd ever be able to trust someone like that." I kicked him out of the apartment and never talked to him again. Also, my fiancée in college cheated on me, so I immediately broke it off and never spoke to her again. Story 25. To me specifically, a friend said they were going to kill themselves and it was my fault. I hadn't done anything to them other than try to be supportive and involved in their life. General actions that made me not trust them. A coworker went full suit. So much that they wear a full suit on casual Fridays when even the owner of the company dresses casual, and this is a company where you never need a full suit. No one ever wears one. Add to that how they keep calling people out on whatever they can think of, and the result is realizing this coworker is only there for themselves and wants to crawl up people's backs for his own benefit. I feel the need to clarify that the suit on its own is not the issue. The suit is just a visual manifestation of his overall behavior that is the real issue. I totally understand that some people are in a situation where it gets them the respect they need to do their job. I have been in that position previously, and am very glad my current place of employment does not work that way. I'm the only lady software dev, and I've never had to do bullshit like wearing a suit to get respect, and I really appreciate that. Story 26 acting like my best friend while my ex behind my back as I'm trying to get back together with her. You lying sack of. My mom was nice enough to offer a room to my cousin for college. She ended up snorting heroin, and using the house as a stash house, stealing $4,000 in gold, and convincing my mom to buy her weed and leave my dad. My mom is still with my dad, but it was a real shitty thing to do. Story 27 my then addict mother with borderline personality disorder. She's done so many damaging things. I can't name just one specific example, but the abuse she put my father, older sister, and I through left scars too big for me to fully gain her trust again. Edit rewording things. Story 28 my now ex-wife had an affair. I know, it's comically mundane. The weird thing is it wasn't the fact she was with someone else that broke my trust in her, it was that she didn't come clean about it. That moment you realize someone is okay letting you believe they're loyal to you when they're not. Story 29 my girlfriend and I held a moving away college graduation party in a river cabin with our closest friends and family. It was a remote cabin outside of cell phone reception. I proposed to my girlfriend that weekend. It was so wonderful. We specifically mentioned that we were so excited to tell friends that couldn't make it. One of our friends' boyfriends left the day before we did. When we got back into cell reception we had like 100 Facebook notifications. The boyfriend had posted it on Facebook including pictures. Totally stole our thunder. After confronting him, he apologized and said he has a social media addiction. Turns out he's outed 2 people's pregnancies before they even told their families. He has a problem. We don't tell him anything until we've told everyone important to us. TLDR someone with social media addiction announced me and my fiance's engagement on Facebook before we told our friends and family. Story 30 went to my dad in a mental haze at 5 a.m. to ask for help after throwing up blood and being scared to death. In the afternoon when I woke up, he claimed I was just overdosing on drugs which he never specified in front of my younger siblings, took my car key, took me off the family phone plan, and told me to move out. Upon telling him to drug test me, he said he didn't need to because he just knew. I am now anemic and have an ulcer, and I'm 18, thanks a lot pops. Story 31 my best friend as a teenager started mocking me and listing things she didn't like about me to a romantic interest I was introducing her to the way I am. Apparently she was mad about something, but instead of coming to me directly she opted to wait for an opportunity to paint me in the worst light possible to someone I wanted to think well of me. It was so bad and out of the blue that the guy thought she was joking and kind of awkwardly laughed along. I was in tears and angrier than I'd ever been. I left the chat and told her she'd no longer be part of my life, and she hasn't been since. 3 months later, she sent me a half-assed non-apology in an email saying she was sorry but didn't regret it because I totally deserved it because reasons. I didn't respond. 6 years later, she hunted down one of my accounts on a journaling website and left a snide comment mocking me about a video game I never finished playing. 6 years, and she popped up just to be a to me about a video game. I never responded to that either, but it felt amazing knowing I made the right choice in getting rid of her. 10 years free of that person, and I have no regrets. Story 32 I told my sister-in-law that I had major depression and had been suicidal for 10 years. Her response was that not everyone who has suicidal thoughts does anything, knowing that my 2 older brothers completed suicide within the previous 2 years. My jaw dropped and I was speechless. My brother, only one left, who was sitting right next to her, said nothing. I will never trust her again, and there are many more reasons why. Story 33 this happened during my military service. Conscription was mandatory for all males, so naturally some individuals tend to slack off whenever they can. I was newly posted to a new unit and got along well with this guy, similar interests and friendly personality. Just 1 month later, during an pre-exercise setup, everyone was sweating hard to get the work done. Walked into an air-conditioned room to find him sleeping in the dark. As I needed to do official work, I turned on the lights. He then went full aggressive on how I was being absolutely selfish for not letting him rest when he was sick. What he basically suggested was I do a slip-shot job so that he could continue sleeping. Of course I ignored him and just did my part. Apparently 1 week later I was still sympathetic to him, thinking it was quite shitty he had to be there even when he was sick as it was a national duty. I then found out he told others I was selfish and inconsiderate blah blah blah, blocked me on social media. Geez, we were 20 already. This blocking thing was like 14 years old. Everyone sided me, and I only realized his social skills were that of a 12 years old. Story 34 mysteriously my DD characters would always die once I reached level 10 and, oh sorry, healing and resurrection just won't work. It took me months of watching their characters have glorious adventures before I realized they had planned to kill me off regularly for fun. I couldn't figure out how their characters would show up with fabulous new and powerful weapons and defenses that I didn't remember them acquiring in previous adventures. Oh, I played a side adventure at home, rolling and DMing for myself. Eventually, one of the guys told me the DM was just buying the books and picking ultra-powerful items for himself and writing them onto his character sheet, and that I probably shouldn't play because it had been decided I would always die, rejected, even by the DD players at my school, lucky me. Story 35 I told a close friend about how I felt about this girl I had a big crush on at the time. Then he sent me a recording of him telling her and her friends that I had a crush on her whilst laughing. He just said it was a joke, and that I shouldn't take it so seriously. Story 36 I gave a guy $1 because he said he needed it for the bus. I thought nothing of it because I've needed $1 before for the same reason, and someone was nice enough to give me one, kind of a pass it forward. The guy stays at the bus stop for like 5 minutes, then walks down the street to a food truck and buys a soda. With the dollar I gave him, then walks away. I'm never giving anyone a dollar again. Story 37. Up until a few months ago, I was best friends with a buddy from school since the age of 13 to 14. After secondary school, we both took different paths in life. I decided to pursue my passion for computing, going to study for another 2 years for my A-levels while he took some college course until he turned 17 and could apply for the army. I want to emphasize at this point that I come from a working middle-class background. Money was never too tight and my family and I usually got by. His family, however, were upper class and quite well off, and he had previously come from a private school. I personally was not a materialistic person because of this, but the same could not be said for my friend. Fast forward to early this year, we still kept in light contact and I asked if he wanted to come down to my university for the weekend and experience some student nightlife. Him and my other friend drove 120 miles across the UK to meet me, where we proceeded to drink until the early hours and passed out sometime in the morning. Sadly, my other friend became ill the next day and they drove back after the goodbyes, and it was good seeing you conversation. Now the night before I was wearing a 50 Ralph Lauren top which I got for Christmas from my uncle, quite expensive in my eyes and I valued it tremendously. It disappeared after my friends arrived, and after looking for it vigorously, I messaged my friends asking if it had somehow got into their bags by mistake. No mate, sorry, they replied, and had to accept I had somehow lost it and carried on with life. During the summer, I got in contact with my friend again. We had changed a lot since then. We'd gone off each other and the flame of friendship was dying, but I tried my best to fan the flame. He was in the army now. He had moved out of his parents' house after moving in with a girlfriend who was terrible for him, and only cared about going out, drinking and having. He's a big guy, being an easy 6'6". To give some context anyway, we drove around and spoke for a bit and the shirt came up in conversation. Turns out he had the shirt the whole time, and had just decided not to tell me. He even told me he wore it on nights out, which seriously pissed me off. I asked him for it back and he said sure. A couple weeks went by and I asked for the shirt back on numerous occasions. He either didn't reply or said he's still looking for it. In the end, I had to go back to university and never got it back. I couldn't challenge him because, well, he's huge. That was kind of the last straw for me. He saw no value in our friendship and that was fine with me. I don't have time for that negativity, so I decided to stop talking to him. Found out he bitched about me a few years ago to his girlfriend too after I gave him advice on his relationship and what I personally thought would be best for him. A shirt might seem petty, but it's what it represented more than anything. You don't steal from your friends. That guy. I work in a lab. I have a coworker that is lazy, stupid and incompetent. Frankly, her laziness is a boon, because she fewer things up that way. I forgive stupidity, she was born with it. The incompetence is management's fault. She should never have been given her current responsibilities without proving herself. What I can't stand is her compulsive lying. She lies for trivial things, knowing we know she lies about big things, and somehow thinks we won't notice or care. The final straw was when she told our customer that the reason she wasn't delivering a test result was because I had not ordered the required spare part. It wasn't my machine, I had no responsibility for it. Still, I had found the required part, got a quote, and sent it to her the day it failed, because I knew she would fail to do so. All she had to do was sign off on it. 6 weeks later, she had not done anything. When I heard what she had done, I simply forwarded all emails on the subject to the customer, and our manager. Yes, she still works here. No, she has not changed. Story 38. My best friend asked me to open up to him. I was going through a tough time dealing with my anxiety. Finally, opened up to him and told him what's up. He went around telling the rest of the friend group he didn't want me around anymore right after. Also after messing with my feelings for almost a year knowing that I was vulnerable. Lost a whole friend group because of this. He has ghosted me ever since. Really sucks cause he was literally the only person I had trusted and did everything with. Story 39. They borrowed some money and told me they'd get it back to me when they were paid. Later they still hadn't paid me back but told me they would finally pay me when we met next week and asked to borrow another 10. While I didn't trust them exactly, I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt since we had been friends a long time. Week comes and still no money. Altogether cost me 30, which was a bargain to learn that they needed to be cut from my life. AC. Story 40. One of my closest friends tells my girlfriend he's in love with her, and she, being who she is, broke it off because she didn't want to come between me and my friend. I didn't find out for months. I still talk to both of them but definitely don't trust them like I used to. Story 41. Broke up with my fiancé and slept over my friend's house. My friend wanted to be in an open relationship with this guy from work, but her fiancé said no to get her way. She sent her fiancé downstairs to have with me while I was passed out drunk, so that he'd have no choice but to let her pursue work love interest. Hate them both. My friend's house was supposed to be safe. For 3 years I financially supported my fiancé in her endeavors through college and unpaid internships only for her to cheat on me as soon as she graduated and got a good paying job. She left me with a very, very large, crippling amount of credit card debt. The worst part about my situation is that I feel cheated out on the life my now ex-fiancé and I were working towards. She had me believing that after she graduated and started finally working, we would hit the debt hard, get married, have another child and buy a house. When I eventually start dating again, I won't be as trusting of my girlfriend and her girls' night out. My ex-fiancé might trust up of any future girlfriend I may have. Thanks by the way, he'll get full custody and child support. Who would have thought a mother can lose custody over the child to the father for simple things such as being an alcoholic and untreated depression? I guess it did help that I started a journal of her drinking habits and all the times this crazy piece of work tossed her meds down the toilet. Story 42. A cousin stole from me and my dad under our noses over the course of a few months. I would understand if it was maybe a few bucks here and there, but it ended up being over $1,000 by time we found out. How he did this was because he was living with us for a while for school, and he took it while we weren't around. My dad ended up confronting him about it, and he had the biggest look of guilt he's seen on him. He was told to pack his things and never come back. His mom found out and eventually she paid us back, but family relations just sort of rotted away from there. Roughly about a year after it had happened, my cousin messaged me asking for money. As soon as I seen the message, I just felt everything in my body burn with anger and wanted to say the most vile things after that. I simply said no, and don't bother asking again, and left it at that.